All right, let's go over full stack for lab test React. All right, so we're just going to focus on components, functional and class, stateless and state, component props, state and events, and controlled components, right? From what we did um, the other day on how to share components between, how to share state between components and data, right? That whole thing we learned last class. So same thing, create React application, and remember, it's obviously really good not to install the node modules if possible, right? So you can just run npm install or yarn install. We're going to be using Moment, but it's going to be React Moment, so we need an npm package. And what we need to do is build a simple tweeter application, right? Knockoff of Twitter. It's going to have 4 components. And they're all going to fit obviously in the app.js, right? So there's going to be a container, a tweet container component, which has a comment, a timer, and a like button. So the tweeter component, 25% is going to be the main container. So what it's going to do is it's going to import a child component called comment, and it's going to display the status passed into the component. So if you can imagine rendering 3 components from app, they would each have a status for each. What that would look like is, if I were to refresh this, these are all 3 components that are passing in the status as a prop from the app component, right? So that's initially what it does. And then you can see here that there is a form, and there's a inline form and a button. And we'll get to that in a second. So this is going to contain a comment form and a post button. This can be an inline form in the JSX, and you're going to be able to take control of that form like we did in the previous lab. When a comment is entered and the post button is clicked, a new comment component containing the text is created and displayed in a comment list. So what that look like if we enter something? Okay. Right, when I click post, it'll actually add this child component, which I don't have any styling, right? You can obviously add some styling. It has a, and we'll get to that in a second. If we add another child component, it'll go underneath there as well. If I type something in here and add that, you'll see it add underneath there, right? And basically that's what it's doing. So, and it renders the list of comment components. So there's a hint here. So the hint is the form and input text box should be controlled components. So how we do that, if you remember, there's 2, usually should have, I'm giving you a hint here, right? Because we went over this in lab. You should have 2 methods or functions. One to handle the form submission. So you want to handle it when somebody clicks that button and keep track of that. Maybe you want to add the comment to your list or array. And then handle text change that takes over from the control component when you're typing, and then you set a value, right? So then the component internally knows about the current comment as well as the comment list to display. And so you need to render that list of components, and you keep building up internally somehow a list of comments, and you pass them into child components here. All right, so then you would have a comment component, which is really this component here. If you can kind of see it, it's a kind of like another container component that has a couple children as well. So what this does is it imports a like button component and a timer component. So they're going to be smaller child components that it's going to render. It's going to render the comment that's passed in from the parent. So when you actually type something in, it's going to render this in the text, right? Of course, I'm not adding any styling. You can go ahead. So at the very least, it's going to just output that text, right? But then we want to timestamp it, and we also want to add some likes to that comment. So it renders a comment passed in as a prop from its parent, renders a like button and a component like button component and timer component, they internally do something else, right? Hint: the comment text passed in from the parent is a read-only prop, right? You're passing it as a prop and displaying it. So what does this timer component do? It imports that library from npm moment, from React moment, and it calculates the current date. It just, you grab the date and display it. Display it in the current format, hours, minutes, seconds, like this. So the time, current time, as well as, let's go back to it. What else it does? So use moment to display the current time, displays the current time. That's kind of, sorry, that's should be like this, right? All right, so we're actually gonna, so the, we have a like button there as well. We have a like button that is also another component that, we'll take a look at this for a second here. So 25% is for a like button that does the following: has internal state to keep track of the number of like clicks, handles a click handler, has a click handler to update the like counter, and displays the number of likes. So, you know, as we're clicking here, it's going to keep track of that internally. Sopranos better, right? Just to show that this has its own state as well. And then what that is, so that's that. And the hint for that one is component should have state and keep track of the number of clicks. It should have an event handler to handle the button click event. All right, so that's kind of it. So, and then it said, so it should display as following like this. There is a bonus mark. If you notice, there's a problem there. So what happens is, if you can solve the problem when the timer component's updating, when the comment is in the, when you're typing the text box, the time should not change. So what I mean by that is, if you noticed up here, so if we, right, when I add something here, now when I go back and I type in this text box, the whole state for this tree is being rendered, and you'll notice that because the timestamp will probably update at that time of state being rendered as I'm typing, you can see it's changing the current time, which if you can't solve it, that's fine. It's all working, but there's a bonus mark if you can figure out how to maintain that state without being affected when everything else is affected. That would be great, because you can see now they're both in line and they're both kind of updating. So a little tricky there. You may need to do something with this timer control to just kind of persist that timestamp and not get updated. All right, so that's bonus. So really, if you can get the main tweeter container rendering at first with the status coming in from the app.js, the main entry point with this, then you got 25 marks. A comment component at the very least, if you can, you know, if you can actually enter some text in and post, even if you had it without this timestamp, without the like button, you just had a list of text, and just as you're adding, you're actually adding to that list or array. Then that's another 25 marks. Then the timer component, where you have that side by side, you're using moment and it's timestamping, right? It's timestamping when you click post, right? It has the current time. That's great as well. And then the other 25 marks is for the like button as well, to have state internally. So there is that bonus mark. We don't want this happening. We want this component to not be affected by updating of the state in the virtual DOM, but that's bonus, right? Because if you just were to test each one individually, you would see, you know, they're all working. But if I go back to this one, type in there, then it updates, because that whole subtree is updating state, and this is timestamping the time of the update, which is bonus if you figure that out. So basically, that's it. React components. No, we don't really need any other third party aside from just npm moment, and we're basically using the React component library. All right, guys. Good luck.